Hi, I'm Maddie Harvey, a knitwear designer who loves helping knitters develop their creativity and confidence with my knitting patterns and kits. This is a video tutorial to show you how to embellish your Heartwood hat. So I'm going to start with this little bullion stitch to make the star at the top. So I'm coming in at the top of the tree, one stitch up, pulling my yarn through. And then I'm going to wrap the yarn around the needle, and for the middle of the star I'm going to do that 10 times. So I hold it with my forefinger and wrap it round 10 times, not too tightly, otherwise you won't be able to do the next step. So hold it with your other hand and pull the needle through, and you'll feel it kind of tighten up, and that's when you know how to stop. And then you're going to put the needle back down into the fabric. And I did it about 1.5 stitches up from where I had started, and just pull that through. So that's the middle of the star. I'm going to do a similar thing to create 2 more of these stitches on either side, but I'm going to do them slightly smaller to give the little star a bit of a star shape. So I'm going in probably about 1/3 of the way up the first bullion stitch, and this time I'm only going to wrap round 5 or 6 times. So again, I'm putting the needle quite close to where that yellow yarn is coming out of the hat, and I'm holding it with my forefinger, and then hold it with my left hand while I pull through. It's a bit like making a French knot, but sort of like an elongated one. Then put the needle back down. I would say that's about 2/3 of the way up that middle stitch that I've already made, just to make the sides of the star a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to go across to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm starting about 1/3 of the way up. And then I'm wrapping round, starting quite close to the knitting 5 or 6 times, and holding it with my forefinger so it doesn't come undone. Hold the wraps with my left hand and pull it through until you feel it tighten. And then put your needle back down into the knitted fabric about 2/3 of the way up. And that will hopefully give you a nice little effect of a star at the top of the trees. So I've used a kind of duplicate stitch to look like fairy lights, and I've kept it quite loose as I've carried the yarn along the back, just kind of stitching through some of the garter stitch loops on the inside, so that it doesn't show on the right side there, a bit like you would when you're weaving in your ends. So I'm going to come up at the bottom of these stitches. Now this is where I've done the knit yarn over knit increase stitch, so it's actually a little bit of a bigger stitch. So I'm just following the stitch around underneath the stitches that have come out of that increase, and then I poke the needle back down where I started, and I'm working on these stitches in rows. So I'm doing all the ones along the bottom at the top of the brim, and then I'll work in the opposite direction and I'll do the next row up. So I'm just stitching along really loosely so that it doesn't affect the stretch of the hat until I get to the next point where I want to do a duplicate stitch. So just give it a little stretch every so often to make sure it's not too tight. So I'm coming up at the bottom of the stitch and going underneath and underneath again, just following the stitch round, and then I go back down where I started from. So here are the other places where I'm going to do that. So all these sort of cross points where I've done the knit yarn over knit increase. Now the other places I'm going to do it is along the edge, and this is more of a traditional a duplicate stitch because it's just a kind of standard decrease along the edges there. So I'm following the stitch around, going underneath the stitch that's above it, and then going back down into the hole where I started. So they're a bit smaller, those ones. And that's what it will look like when it's finished. You can do all of the tree motifs on the hat or just some of them.